Namo Guru Be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Namo Namo Bedaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Namo Bedaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Kande Laye Gwenje Toga Raga Shosang Pongde Chunze Sheye Yabo Gwenjen Losanda Seda Cheba Nede Sheso So Dunye Nanga Sindi Bende Chize Lama Jebe Zonga Talon Debe Sena Shinjo Denpa Yeje Geya Shuso Sheje Chungun Jabe Lodu Geza Nawe Jinjo Leshe Chabe Beje Lamen Zebe Tongde Tembe Dende Laja Yewo Cheye Nazo Medo Tishen Dobe Nangsen Deja Ngusha Yidu Chudin Yazo Sena Xingzho Chela Chi Kanshi Tongmen Dune Saba Lungwa Yiso Migin Chiji Kebaran Domba Sumji Medun Yingnian Yuban Dabu Sosu Ningmen Dude Mandu Dubla Chuje Bangbe Denjo Duyu Gombo Chuje Labjin Zeba Daja Samba Shizi Lama Damba Kenam Ye Chugu Kala Tenzin Dorjee Cheda Samben Dorjee Sima Sabye Chuju Chawa Abdu Namda Vise Yingle Shimba Shunju Gola Chado Minga Tame Nangu Sugu Rabda Side Bado Minu Demba Dazo Chini Sabe Tendan Drobo Gunla Kamben Kebara Jeju Losan Chaba Dembe Ningbo Rendo Seje Mingme Zewe Dejen Jenre Chime Kembe Wangbo Jam Debo Mali Jomze Sawe Kanjin Kebe Zojin Zonga Losan Chabe Shabla Sowa Mingme Zewe Dejen Jenre Chime Kembe Wangbo Jambe Debo Mali Jomze Sawe Kanjin Kebe Zojin Zonga Losan Chabe Shabla Sowa Mingme Zewe Dejen Jenre Chime Kembe Wangbo Jambe Tubo Mali Jum Kanjen Kebe Zujen Song Lozan Jabe Shabla Sowan De Banden Sabe Lama Rimbo Taso Jiuro Benden Densho Kadin Chimbu Kone Cheso Guzon Toji Wudu Zendo Banden Sabe Lama Rimbo Taso Ningara Benden Densho Gaden Chimbu Kone Cheso Chodan Timo Wudu Zendo Banden Sabe Lama Rimbo Taso Ningara Benden Densho La Gaden Chimbu Changjo Ningbu Ba Denbara Jo Masan Jume Shera Paru Maje Manga Namge Ngobo Soso Rari Yishe Juyu Tuzon Ye Saze Lo Deya Ta Gade Para Sam Bodhi So Ha Deya Ta Gade Para Sam Bodhi So Ha Deya Ta Gade Para Sam Zo Gere Tongda Jaju Chiwa Mede Nebe Jenda Dewa Da Teba Daje Denjan Den Jo So Shimbu Jo Jonam la janjo bando dane jazo dage chujurun jebe zonam je dolo bije zanje do barajo chena zoje jonam la janjo bando dane jazo dage chujurun jebe zonam je dolo bije zanje do barajo Cheda Zoye Jonan La Janjo Bado Dane Jazo I would like to remind every one of ourselves here and those who are plugged online, let's take a moment to cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment or Buddhahood for the sake of all other sentient beings. with that kind of at least contrived, altruistic, bodhicitta motivation, we should participate in this Bodhisattva's discourse on the perfection of wisdom or wisdom gone beyond. Chapter 9 from the Bodhisattva Guide of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva. So where we left off in this guide or the chapter 9, realist or ngurmawa in Tibetan, who believe that things must exist in and of themselves or intrinsically. Yeah? And for them, if things don't exist intrinsically in and of themselves, then they couldn't exist at all. They should be non-existent. So that is the topic of debate, argumentation, discussion, and how the middle way philosophers or the Madhyamikans are telling them that even though things don't exist intrinsically, but that does not mean necessarily that they don't exist at all, right? That's how the debate goes on between the two debaters, realists and the middle way philosophers.
Raji Mena, Musu Tondo, because you are the Rajiva, Chibashi, Rajiva and Mayor Gorva. We did do this on the Corona device, you know, Rahi, you got the Suso, Gaga, you want to kill him, you in the Suso, Yormas. So there are GDP those. What did I do about it?
So as Geshe read from the extensive commentary and explained, when we say Nguyamaba, realist, this would include a number of Buddhist philosophical followers. This would include the Vipassika school of thought. This would include the Southern Chika school of thought. Actually, this will include all the way up to the mind only or the Chitta Mantrins, right? They are all grouped together and called realist. And so as they hear the Prasangika Madhyamikans, the topmost Buddhist philosophical school of thought, say that things do not exist intrinsically, right? They're empty of intrinsic existence. What they are hearing is that now the Prasangika Madhyamikans are saying that things don't exist at all, right? So they allege them as nihilists. How can you say that? Things don't exist at all. And so they argue with the Prasangika Madhyamikans, you know, if you say that things don't exist intrinsically, that's very much contradicted by the direct perceptions of sensory perceptions of ordinary people, right? We see things with our eyes, we hear things with our ears, so we have the five senses, and they do directly and validly perceive their objects. And so that means they do exist intrinsically. So how can you say that things don't exist at all when the ordinary direct valid perceptions, you know, see them exist? Does that make sense? So that's the point of the debate here, right? And what Prasangika Madhyamikas are saying is this: realists are conflating intrinsic existence and existence, right? They think that existence means intrinsic existence, right? And so they're conflating these two concepts, and also they're conflating the non-intrinsic existence and non-existence. For them, if things don't exist intrinsically, they don't exist at all. So they're conflating the emptiness of intrinsic existence and complete non-existence. They're conflating that things do exist. If you say, well, then they must exist intrinsically, right? That's the problem on the realist side that Prasangikas are seeing. But the realists themselves don't see it, you know.
No, this is what the currency was in a sure the only the Umbunga Samari knew to say the Umbunga to sure make it on Amjo Hoya to the Samadu mother. Sure, new Ganga Samado took my spelling on the Chu Ganga Yeshiwa Marva, so Lalu Mamboya Rabena. Minto is not called cutting with the Thomas Lazaku, some little cutting. Karsa de Hakumara. Or didn't you sure could they change you to the dog alamambo you answer? That I see to Rakbata stories. And sure, never told me you don't to Mari. She doesn't never your Maris. Don't know what it was.
So, in a nutshell, how Prasangika Madhyamikans are refuting the realist arguments. That is, they say that ordinary sensory perceptions validly perceive their objects to exist. So how can you say they don't exist at all? Yeah. Now, Prasangika is saying that we are not denying that sensory direct perceptions validly perceive their objects, right? Visual sensory perception validly perceives forms. Auditory sensory perceptions validly perceive sound, and so on. We are not doing that, right? Denying that. But these ordinary sensory direct perceptions are only valid with regard to their conventional objects, they are not valid in relation to the ultimate nature of things, because there are differences, right? Some are easier to understand, deal with. These are the gross level, coarse level, and some are subtle and much more difficult to deal with. Okay? So yes, we accept, like you, that ordinary direct sensory perceptions can validly perceive the phenomena, but it does not mean they are valid with respect to every level of existence, right? They're not valid in relation to the ultimate nature of phenomena. That's what we are saying. So as Geshe this gives an example, right? Even in case of a person, relatively speaking, we can easily assess a person at a physical level, right? What kind of a person, how tall the person is, likable or not. But it's very difficult to really assess what's going on in the mind of that person, isn't it? Because that's more difficult thing to assess. So phenomena have those levels. Some are easily accessible, easily understandable at some level, but others are more concealed and more subtle, and it's really not easy to figure it out. Just like that, ordinary sensory perceptions are dealing with a coarse level phenomena. So they can validly perceive their form, sound, smell, just you name it. We agree with you. But by that logic, you cannot say that these perceptions are also valid with regard to the ultimate nature of these things, because they are not. Okay. No.
What is your Karsa in the Churlia Nilu, Lamsa Toya, the dog, we can't need to go in your said that they need to Tada Ombunga to Rakwatsum to Maris.
No.
Cha to Maris, Cha to in don't the Dami to Dami the dog, the dog in a Taiwan Tabi Kamatoya Todalia, Lam Gomiada, in the Kaleja to whom was.
No, sir.
Sugar on she to Lam Gumgoya Marabas.
No.
Said the local Gachikwa Maritelia. Loy Chava talk at the Mambo your is.
No, sir.
Oh, do you ever did that? They shows on just what Karsa.
Things that give it all.
But thing is the Jewel. Thing is the Jewel. Miller the Sema me said Karsa. You said what? Thing is the Jewel. Miller no one Sema me. Chather lose a thing. Same man day. Get the own did that say. Habelanji, Sulaji, share the Juba Ledger. Get that did some in the Jide the Bogi. Chico Pabalaji. Number Samara Mayano, he saw that Nilu la Sema in Pagamia Gumi de Tawasoji, George Zane, Kabe sauce. Or they could not devote Shirama to Lam Gomia, the Tarbatoya to killing Grava.
Not really.
Or to Sanji killing what they get. Then you know, the Lam Namja, they should go up to us. On Shinga, Gangato to win any Kalija go up to us. Just a Mazin dollar, ya, and the only to Ticolan 7 million song jazz.
No, sir.
And the daughter of almost because of song jazz. This was a Karsadi. Oman goes to ballet to so good. Long the Rigba correlation at the only to the deconal semi Mari. She said, oh, she could tone Karza. The children Russian me said, oh, she summer Nugmaris. Oh, you summer go to you the sheet over.
No.
No, didn't don't show the semi thousand, 7 years ago. Semi Meva thousand,
No.
7 years ago.
No.
You say, I'm a 7 year Marva.
Not
Or
really.
the guess she was there.
No. So as Krishna read from the extensive commentary and explained, so Prasangika Madhyamikans, the top-notch Buddhist philosophers, are telling the realists that there are different types of realities. Some are more accessible, easily understood. Others are much more difficult to fathom. Okay? And so we agree with you that ordinary sensory perceptions could validly perceive their objects such as forms and sounds and smell. Okay? But that does not mean that these perceptions are valid to all kinds of realities. They are not valid with regard to the ultimate nature of their objects or phenomena. Okay? And if you still insist that these sensory direct perceptions are valid with regard to the ultimate nature of things, then that means that these sensory direct perceptions are validly perceiving selflessness and emptiness, isn't it? Are you with me? If that's the case, so what's the point of practicing and cultivating like path and everything? Why we go through so much trouble, right? Because there's no need for that. Because our sensory perceptions are already perceiving emptiness, selflessness, so why do we have to like meditate and cultivate path? Because it's all useless, isn't it? So what's the point of Arya's transcendental wisdom, right, superiors? So why is that something special? Because our eyes can see the emptiness, so what's the point of Arya's having a realization of emptiness? So that wouldn't make any sense. Are you with me? Of course, the Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas are Buddhist schools philosophers, isn't it? They do accept that we have to study the basis, the path, and the result. We have to cultivate the path to achieve liberation, right? Right? They're not going to say that, that's not. So then we are telling them, well, that whole presentation is useless because now our sensory perceptions are validly perceiving emptiness, selflessness is, so why do we have to cultivate a path to find nirvana? There's no point with that. Right? So this is how counter-arguments are made against their realist positions here. So in other words, there are different types of perceptions, different levels of realities, isn't it? Not that every perception can access realities at all levels, And we know that sensory valid perceptions, they deal with particular kind of realities, but then they are not good to deal with the ultimate nature of phenomena. But then the other levels of perceptions, they can deal with the ultimate nature of phenomena, but they may not deal with like the conventional reality. Does that make sense? So all those things exist, and we must keep those in our mind. So as the commentator clarifies here, these debate and argumentations are taking place among Buddhist schools of thought, right? Buddhists are not debating with non-Buddhist schools of thought or philosophy here. Vaibhashikas and Sautrantikas do accept that, the true truth on the level of the basis. They talk about the paths that we need to cultivate in order to achieve nirvana, right? Because they do believe in nirvana, freedom from, samsara, okay? And so now when the Prasangika Madhyamikas point out the contradictions that exist in their system, right? And these contradictions are very applicable, isn't it? Because what they're saying is, yes, we have to deal with the true truth, then we have to cultivate the path, and then we have to achieve nirvana. But now on the other hand, they're saying as if that our sensory direct perceptions are accessing the ultimate truth, isn't it? Which is the path to nirvana. So then the Prasangika said, well, there's real contradictions there, isn't it? If our eyes can see the emptiness, the ears can, auditory perceptions can access emptiness, then what's the point of cultivating path, right? There's no need. We already realize emptiness. And so there's a real contradiction in your system, right? That's what they are pointing out, isn't it? If the realist positions really want to challenge the Prasangika Madhyamika position, then the argument they should be making is that, as the Prasangikas accept that things do not exist intrinsically, they are empty of intrinsic existence, now they have to argue that things do exist intrinsically, right? They have to put the opposite of it, right? The opposite position, what we call the direct antithesis position, that you have to establish it, right? Now, if they can do that well, then they have a way to win the debate, isn't it? That can really bother the Prasangikas, like, But they're not doing that, Now they end up in a interesting position. It's almost like the direct sensitive perceptions can see emptiness. So you are in a trouble, isn't it? If that's the case, hey, why talk about a path? Why you talk about Aryas? What's the difference, right? Yeah. No.
Well, the thing is, you would all make the no, some of us to get the kind make Navji the no, sure can't Sama means go more than make Navji the so Sama, no, you does Sama, and then Navji the children so Kadul Sama song the or Sama.
No.
It is a new tattoo Sama mines, or this is Chitanya Sama than means. Sigo Marta, and the truth, the Yore, the Kaje, the Lungs, Church, Yomers, Sematan Yomers,
So Prasangika Madhyamikas are also quoting back Buddha's words, right? Like they quoted them back. They said, look, in the Samadhi Raja Sutras, King of Concentration Sutras, Tenzin Dorjee, Buddha said, right, eyes, ears, nose, and so forth are not valid. Are with me? And so that's why they don't exist intrinsically. Yeah? So as Krishna is trying to clarify this, we really have to understand what it means that eyes, ears, nose, and the tongue don't, how to say, they are not valid. They are, not valid to certain realities, isn't it? Because they do exist, and they are valid with regard to, as we said before, their own objects. Eyes, or visual perception, is valid with regard to its forms it perceives, isn't it? Auditory perception is valid with regard to the sound. Olfactory perceptions is valid with regard to the smell, and so forth, isn't it? So that's not denied. That exists. But when Buddha said they are not valid with regard to the ultimate reality, isn't it? So that has to be understood. That's have to be clear. Because some people misinterpret this, and they say, well, Buddha said nothing exists at all. He said, look at the Samantra Raja Sutra. He said nothing is valid. So if nothing is valid, nothing exists, right? So there's wrong interpretations comes up. So we have to be very careful what Buddha meant by such statements,
What did Jigden was said, Jigden Ranga said this or that.
No.
Jigden Sama, Jigden, you take on a Tongan together, married that.
No.
She got Namja, doing the new child to Hamogi.
No.
What to do, make not take the Sama means she done yet, and she can't Sama Mines, the new Sama Mines, or this in car, what she got to take that. Lumbo Samarbo Mino, Lumbo Sidana, called the Cursa made cook part of that, Lamba Sigaro, Kai John Down to make it like made Lumbo Sigmare, Kai became what the rest is.
So Geshe wants to really make sure that the statements made in the King of Concentration Sutras, where Buddha said eyes, ears, nose, and so forth are not valid, what does this really mean? Is this they are not valid with regard to the ontological realities of phenomena or the emptiness, isn't it? But they are valid through their conventional objects, form, sound, and smell, So it's very important to keep that differentiation in the mind. It's very important, right? If we still insist that these eyes, ears, nose can see emptiness, that is almost like we are listening to a statement of a naive person, isn't it? A naive person can say anything, right? Yeah.
What is it, Karsa? Kasos, the Suzo Ranzenji, Madrona, Sedana, Jidana, China, Shedana, Ranzenji, Madrobe, Zuban Yishan, Sudi, Pen, Pumeki, Luigi, Maison la Soba, Q, Deja, Dela, Young, Dela, Zang, Chabatan, Soje, Sojes, Datage, Temba, Jigdena, Metabala, Takbatawada, Dunga, Deva, Dame, the Dawa, Chajang. Shakpa Teta Majaba Kendi, Sudo Ingo Jide, Shaba Nanja, Nanzu, the Nizu Mudushing, She Mississippi, Zumba, Gimata Yinos, or did that pet of the Hiorda. Zumba Medeva Carresana, Suzo de Roshi, Zide Raga, and the Raito Nango is. Yet no ya Carresana, and the Randage Bikena. Sud de Penance, Pumegi, Luigi, Mezoso, Penna, Pumel, Louis the Samadin, and did the Pumela Shabak and did it was. But today she had the Pumel Samadin Kaimara was. What dinner he had Susan Nozo Ganga began Tata told Nilio Maris. He petted he was that. Pumel Carbezoa in a did the big Zama Nango is. The Metabal Takbata in the Mezon Zama Mambo, but the Koya Doll, Saji Doll, Koal Doata, I think was it because she did a lot Mambo or the Kona Tar, Kona Tawana, he or Maris, the Karsa. Shug Niluda, Kansa Soto, Nangju the Hindu, and the Ratugo Maris, the Tigre, in Nangju Nashi Ganga Tugumaris, or this one.
So, what Geshe has explained pertains to stanza 6 there. And so, Prasangikars are pointing out that there is a disparity between how things appear to our perceptions and how do they actually exist. Okay? Things do not necessarily appear to our perceptions as they exist. And that's important to be recognized here, isn't it? As Prasangikars argue that things don't exist intrinsically, what they're saying is that things do appear to exist intrinsically to our ordinary perceptions. But do they really exist that way? No. So what do we see? They appear to us in one way, they exist in another way. But as ordinary people, we are not able to recognize that disparity, the gap there, isn't it? So we think, well, they exist the way they appear to exist to our perception. That's how the realists think. Because realists say, well, things appear to us as intrinsically existent, and that's how it exists. But the Prasangikars say, yeah, we agree, that's how it appears, but that's not how they exist, right? So that's important to be understood, because we have all kinds of distorted perceptions and what we call incorrect mental states, right? The Tibetan word I'm throwing there because English word is sometimes not exact, so you can keep track of the Tibetan words. For example, ordinary people seems to perceive that which is impermanent as permanent, isn't it? That's our issue. Things are impermanent, but we perceive them as permanent. That's one problem, isn't it? And things which are unclean in nature, we might see them as very clean. So the example given in the stanza 6 is that, how, lustful, that's the assumption, men and women, right, who are really attached to each other's bodies. So they, although the nature of our body is unclean, but then because of that attachment and lust, we might see them as super clean. Are you with me? So that's another issue. And also everything, we perceive that which is not happiness as a real happiness, isn't it? All the contaminated pleasures which we normally consider as a happiness are in the nature of suffering. They are not real happiness, isn't it? But we have such perceptions. And things don't exist, what we call self-sufficiently, self-existent, but then we perceive them to exist that way, isn't it? So we have all these distorted perceptions, and it's important for us to see them and figure it out so that we understand how things actually exist. Okay? Yeah.
What is it? That James said, this is what I can get. James, you told us, you're not James, the man, James was.
No, so.
So they chose the dinner, chose the thing to go, you have a chick, you know, got thousands and gone one of the day, gone but the show the days in the day. Try here to see now.
No,
And to get ready to show the Rego Marwa.
no,
That to get poppy in the young, control the dodo laws, did you, Yomara?
no.
She said, it's not Johnson, you're the She says, you know, what Dr. said, that Johnson said there, that's it. You do such a go, what do you want?
No, so this is a very important expression of the technical way we talk about chess. Serba, can it withstand analysis, isn't it? Okay, that's very important technical language there. Should things exist the way they appear to exist to our perceptions, then under analysis, they should be able to withstand that. We should be able to find them, isn't it? If we couldn't find them, pinpoint them, means they failed the test. They couldn't withstand the analysis. Does that make sense? So that's why Geshe used, for example, a table or a desk, whatever, right? Conventionally, we know there is that thing called desk or table, isn't it? And if we are happy with that, there's no issue. But then if somebody asks, really, tell me, what is the table? What's the table next there? You know, tell me that. Is it that leg on this side or that side or the top part or the bottom part or the sideway? Which is the table? If we dissect all the parts of the table, we still couldn't find anything that's left over there. Say, hey, here's the table. Do you see it? Right? We couldn't. So what that tells us that the table, right, the way it exists, right, the way it appears to our perception could not withstand that analysis, isn't it? It really doesn't exist the way we think it exists. If it does, then under that analysis, when we dissect everything, we should be able to find a table there. But we couldn't. Okay? Nice.
What is Karsa? James about somebody metaso don't be long tongue doing, but then telling you up about Tamboni Jigde. So, come for some dance there. Suzo and Shinji Madrona. Dokajile, Suzo, Governor, Metaboso, Sugar, Sumbat and Yellow Shena, taking over the Mumbai Shambi, Mumbai, Jigdenga, the Konani, Ton last, Rem, Sugar, Ton, Gushe, didn't it? Do a tower cables, Jigdengi, Gombo, Kolo Tombo so. Suzo Governor Ranshi Shubate Batsanji, the Konani, the Suzo, the dog, Gajik Ma, need to Shuba Mende. The Trevor Ranshi Trevi, check the Macaron Ingola. Take away, check the Tumani, check the Turigi, Rigbe Chene, Mojabi Shero. Then, you see, Meta was so long time to the tennis. You don't even go and say those. 다들 장동기도세 계시가 해야 장에 계시야 여러 어디 다 지다 장도세야 돼 네고를 야 예동세 네고락 뭐 그도세 되게 장도세야 제세 양 도이나 도거를 되거나 돈이 저지 되게 좋으신 게 예동도세 다 소도 좋아라서 내가 믿다와서 디레딩이들 장동세요 제다들 가기죠 어디도 다다데 믿다와서 때야데 수아디 너디 장동레스 그래서 믿다와대야 돼 믿다와서 된걸 모두 다음에다 동화도 된거 말아 나네 그래서 어디가 그 누구 마대 장동도 있어 어디서 와다
Geshe-la's explanation pertains to stanza 7 there. And so as Geshe-la explained, now what we are really dealing with is one of a very, of course the whole chapter is a tough topic, as we all know, wisdom, emptiness, but we're talking about tange, right? That which is definitive, that which is interpretable. And it's a mouthful to say in English. I only have tange in Tibetan, right? So what is the difference, right? That which is interpretable, that which is definitive, right? And so we can look at that in a couple of ways. Yeah. One way, in terms of from phenomena point of view, we can say, things which are conventional, right, in nature, these are called more like interpretable, so form or something, right? Interpretation. Emptiness or selflessness, the ultimate nature, is the only definitive phenomenon. Are you with me? That's one way. The another way to look at them is from sutra point of view, discourses. What kind of sutras are regarded as definitive sutras? What kind of sutras are regarded as interpretable sutras? Now, the sutras that explicitly deal with emptiness, selflessness are the definitive sutras. Yeah? Sutras that deal with other than emptiness, other phenomena, form, smell, feeling, this, that, right? These are what are called interpretable sutras. Yeah? So that's why here I think realists must be pointing to how Buddha talked about impermanence, things like that, right? And somehow Geshe haven't explained yet, so I shouldn't go ahead of that. So Geshe, what they're saying is that Pasangika is telling them where the Buddha talks about impermanence and so forth, we regard that as interpretable sutra, not a definitive sutra. Okay? Because impermanence is not emptiness, selflessness, right? And it is an interpretable sutra. From pedagogical point of view, Buddha gave his teachings of all kind, really taking into account the mental dispositions of sentient beings, right, people, how much they can handle, what really is going to benefit them more, so to speak. So according to their dispositions, abilities, Buddha taught different things, right? Buddha did not talk about the same thing to everybody, emptiness, emptiness, emptiness. He didn't say that, because that doesn't work. Yeah? And so that's why, because people or sentient beings have a variety of dispositions and capacities. So that's why in Buddhism, in terms of schools of thought, tenets of philosophy, at least we have 4 schools of thought. Vaibhashika, Substantika, Chittamartin, mind only, and Madhyamikan, middle way, isn't it? But all of them are taught by Buddha, the same Buddha, according to the level of different philosophical minds, isn't it? In the same way, Buddha also taught about Theravada, or His Holiness like to call the Pali tradition, and talked about the Mahayana or the Sanskrit tradition, right, Bodhisattva, because Buddha did not talk about the same thing to everybody, because according to the mental dispositions of different beings, so Buddha taught different forms of Buddhism, isn't it? Pali tradition Buddhism, Sanskrit tradition Buddhism, or Theravada Buddhism, and Bodhisattva Yana, isn't it? So Buddha is very skillful, right? Taught everything according to the needs of the being and how much they can handle and what Buddha thought is going to be beneficial to them.
Sanje Gudil Nashina Napa Secretary, the Sanje Gudil Shena out Pendo Young Maris, but the Sanje Satal Karis, Chisonda, say Ali Uzus in the Mati, Sanje Guditam Maris.
Yes.
It then Sanje Gudil Jivashima Shoma lives. This is some brace. In the co-passing case of Dujares, Jivashima Shoma lives in the Naldi series Maris. Shida Jiva Shida, part of the quality of Chan Shida, your Maris.
No, sir.
Your Johnny Jivashima was value. I think that I give Shida me a tanga singing, but something. In Kogawa to Kyushu, Kobe, the way she was here they are.
No,
That Shoma lives is something some noise. And then Kogawa shoes. Intelligent, part of man says, Jevostan in the Gaza. You go come to see quarter, met the Taiwan the Jews. That Kadu said, part of Martin Severs. In some you said, sometimes that Dangzi the Jesus is the
hello, sir.
or that get Johnson in the mid Tabato would be a Taba Pesaji, that Tabato, yes, the song whatever.
Hello, sir.
I said, quite a nega governation. Got Papa saying, Sanji, Pekaji Domana, the government. In the March, it got some of the yard, that part mass is a part of says of the Ingemarity. In could the part of mass had done the citizens of the imitated Hakon go quality and say, in the kind of court, Damio Tonito, and the call. That problem to talk share. That don't do that. Is a mambo, that Suji to data, Sanji talk give.
So, Keshala would like to share Buddhist story to illustrate Buddha's skillfulness in teaching beings who are in dire need of his help. Yeah. So this story is about King Ajatashatru, right? And he killed his own father, Bimbisara. Yeah. And so, under the influence of a bad person, he killed his father so that he could become a king, right? Now he felt so bad. So his mother said, I think you should go to see Buddha. He said, no, I don't think that will help me at all. But mom insisted, Buddha is a very skillful teacher, I think just go and listen, do. So somehow, under mother's advisement, he decided to go to see Buddha. And so when he went alone, actually, and Buddha just greeted him as, befitting him, right? Welcome, Your Majesty. At first, he didn't think it was about him because he's so guilty of killing his father. So he thought maybe there was another king. Why Buddha said, welcome, Your Majesty, right? He looked around. He realized he was the only person. So he thought it must be me. So he became a little happy, right? He said, oh, Buddha just, did not scold me. He just said, hey. And so then he told Buddha that he killed his father. And Buddha said something in the discourse, there's a whole statement, father and mother are to be killed, and so on. And he got lost, like he felt a little better, right? And Buddha did not scold him, admonish him, like, how dare you kill your father, right? I mean, you created the sin or anything. He didn't say, father and mother are to be killed, and then so on. And so he felt a little bit, kind of a, little space in the mind peace, and then he went home. And then he thought about it, what did really Buddha mean, right? And then as he thought about it, it is said that he really understood the real meaning behind what Buddha said. By using the word father and mother to be killed, what Buddha was telling him was that self-grasping and self-cherishing should be eradicated. And then that's the way to the nirvana and enlightenment, isn't it? So he really realized that, and then he thought about that, and then he meditated to cut short the story, that he realized emptiness non-conceptually, and he became an Arya being, transcendental being. Okay. So Buddha helped him, right? At the time of the need, Buddha couldn't have said like how terrible you killed your father, everything, but Buddha kind of stunned him. Father and mother are to be killed, right? So that is what we call interpretive sutra, right? No.
What is the Karsa? You just do it as well, did that song better this year.
No.
Yipalangas, Kunzo de Yang, Majaba, Bangba, source of a medaba, soba, source of a medaba, Bangba, Nizojo medaba, Bangba, Gediganaye medaba, Bangba, Kondegi, Yeva medaba, Kondegi. Yeba medeba bangba was. That tell this way, Yeba Nasi did that did Gaba the Dada Sanji did those songs the Gitil Gaba. Kudo the Mautobas, Kudo the Rahitra said the Yomaris Karsa did this was Ranji remained Kudo the Mirror, and good Mevata Taba Majik. And the Ranji so with so medeva, so Jivaja said in medeva. Nimzu was a make your layer to the bar and get the doing out to the medeva. Get dig Naya medeva. Konde never made the coad and young did the Namjata never cause it. Shaji Naya kind of take Maris. Ranji mena, what did Chita, but not the Chirama decision this order. Oma Chino did Shooter Ranji mena, and the long door now Yakaya, Jawangashila, Legionella Savata, any Taba Tabji was Shaji Kaya take Medus. Whatever it is, the Koros of Unirashi, Yoga Rahi, when the maid or I think it. Sure, what is it?
So what we will be dealing with, sort of like a preview, is that from realist point of view, as they hear the Prasangika Madhyamika say that nothing exists intrinsically, so for them, then they think that Prasangika is saying nothing exists at all, right? That's their translation meaning. So then they started to bring a lot of arguments against that. Right? For example, they said, well, if you say that things don't exist intrinsically, then there would not be any conventional phenomena, isn't it? Because you're saying that they don't exist at all. If you say that things don't exist intrinsically, then that means there cannot be the accumulation of merit and accumulation of wisdom, right? The two accumulations couldn't be possible. If you say that things don't exist intrinsically, then how can we differentiate between samsara and nirvana? Because such distinction makes no sense, right? Because nothing exists there. So if you say that things don't exist intrinsically, then how does the law of karma becomes feasible? How can karma bring all kinds of outcomes? That makes no sense at all, right? And if you say things don't exist intrinsically, then how can you say there's a life before and life after? All of these things, right, will make no sense, right? That's how the realists are translating in their mind, and they are labeling all these charges against the Prasangika Madhyamikans. Okay?
What is it with that Karsa? Nipalanga Kundo de Marapamba, Soso Midababas, Yenzo, Kaji did Kundo de Jidani, Namja and take him to 6 years. That's Soso Midaba sitting on the any Taba Tamshivato, they wrote to the Kaji. So that you just go, what they take me this. You do show us another Java there.
No.
Or they made them say. Any getting and now you made them another Java. The Diwapang said that and Navaka do or what they take me this. Kundi Yeva made them said, Koada means Kasa, Tarba Yeva Meva. The Namjaji and Medus, Namjat Shaji Kaya take Medus, Raji means Shaji Kaya take Medus. What did they tell you?
So those are the charges, like different arguments, right? The realists are making against them. I mean, what Geshe said is already some of the things he already said, but realists feel that in order to achieve nirvana or whatever, we need to accumulate merit, and we need to purify negativities, right? He said if things don't exist intrinsically, then the purification practice and accumulation practice is not feasible. Okay? And then you talk about, how we die and we are reborn and all of that, right? The whole theory of rebirth is unfeasible if things don't exist intrinsically, And then, there is a whole presentation about samsara and nirvana, right? All the presentations about samsara and nirvana are not feasible. You're destroying everything here if you say things don't exist intrinsically, right? So those are the charges labeled against the Madhyamikans by the realists, and we will deal with them, right? Or we, in the sense, Prasangika Madhyamikans are going to deal with them.
Tela suzo dushi yingobo te da te ko dina kunzo suzo dushi yingobo te geji ma da meta be gede jigde na ngadu te ge tena yebes ngobo te ni shiru tena yewa dejing da ta ba ta be shir hinas dire da konje jigde na yang ngozo tudu shoba da goda dire cheva shin 다 쇼베 직사리 인공 심사세 디렉 계속 요마라 쇼베 카라 되네 레저와저 미나 너무 이제 타가라 랑자모도 그 계속 지야 남이 하고 말마 시대 거 따바는 이도라디 남자 시고 말이 센데세 다 진지된다 잡아 차장 지대 코나 되잖아 지대 차세가 세마시도 말이스 시대 진지된 코나 kuzo kono jide ranga tre chana te chawa dire chawa ta moto na del ya deva ka yo maris ta thoda de this wata
no sir. So this is related to still we are dealing with the stanza 7. I think the last two lines of that stanza in Buddhism, we talk about how things are impermanent in the sense of things are undergoing momentary changes or disintegrations, isn't it? But ordinary perceptions, right, do not see that, isn't it? For us, we get up in the morning, we go to bed in the evening, we think we're the same person. Nothing changed at all, isn't it? But things has been changing from moment to moment. So on the basis of our perceptions, looks like those mountains have been here for years. That house has been here for years, I know. So looks like these are permanent, isn't it? Things appear to our perceptions as permanent because we do not perceive the momentary changes they are undergoing from moment to moment. So by this, what we are saying is that our perceptions are not always valid, isn't it? Our ordinary perceptions are. We regard things that seems to be stand firm and lasting long as permanent, but in reality, these are impermanent and undergoing all that momentary changes and disintegration. No.
Ragba churu jidebe nenjo betanyewe semi chubjing tobe tela tebe kundo ibe shir yeba mede shesu ose one keji madang medaba so kundo ina meda so churu tonga di kona yu tonga yimba sumba de gena ge kene minge de jide ranga yu sukso 상대 딱다 뒤 소기 신제로도 셈바 되데 메타 주로 통하다 당예점 신제 몰어봐 임베 디코나이 통한 세계 누구니즈 라테데 메다 소소 통하 디코나이 통하면 누구니즈 데 메다 다 메다 대화도 등에 소예다 타카루 거디어 맞아 라시도 봐 임비시 शेरोस शे तेले शेन जीरेना सुजो तकबा छाला तेला छाजे सेमाई गोना जीरेना सुजो तकबा छबे सेमाती नेजोबे सुजो मेदाबा सेमे छबा नु गोला तेता मेदुबा गोबे नेजोबे फमेगे लुबे जवा नेवा तोबे लोदे Pumeke, Luzawa, Shemejidi, Shagin, you lost in you never TV, John Jenna. Then the middle lot in La, Tanya, the Shenji Lomology, Chavo Yevisheta, Cheria, Dorjee, Niembo Midube, Dingin, Bangja Shaw, Niembo Shaw La, New Mississippi Sheros. I did the lot, know the Jidel lot, Nugma, Jideva Tanya, Ranga, Rangu Trabazable lot, and the Kosema Maris, and the Coco that lot Sema Lu to Maravasheta, Rangu Trabazable lot, Ranga, the Sema Mariseta, and the Kor Raji was Lu to Maris. Didn't do an append. Change law to the Yakayi, but change law to the change model law to change law to the Gashi. You can't get to the Gashi, may well do get to do it. Local Zinga, I know what did and Shayi Nashaka take Maravas. The concert tell it to the Shago Mari. Cross, Nanzo, the Matoji, Mubotel, Bag, Shiva Maris, Kodo, the Wu begin to carry the Tell Pabto Mari. Cross now in a tell and the Samashigo Maris. There was Gimeta, the Tagunin Zigeti, the quote that the Samando Marva.
No,
What did you want?
no. So I think contention is that realists trust, the ordinary perceptions of things, right? How things appear to our ordinary perception, that's how they should exist, And so they use those perceptions to argue against Prasangika Madhyamikan's standpoint that things do not exist intrinsically. So Prasangikas are telling them that on the one hand, we already told you that ordinary sensory perceptions, they can directly perceive their phenomena, but they're not valid perceptions with regard to all kinds of realities and things, isn't it? On the other hand, ordinary perceptions are very distorted. So you cannot use the distorted perceptions to, argue against the correct perceptions, and so that's the contention here. So in other words, you cannot, use that the ordinary perceptions perceive things to exist intrinsically as evidence to eradicate or nullify, right, the perception of emptiness, intrinsic existence. It doesn't work this way, isn't it? It works the other way around. That ordinary people, perceive things as permanent. You cannot use that perception to contradict the perception of impermanence. So that's that argument is not going to work in a sense. So as Geshe give this example of we are looking at illusory horses and elephants, and we are looking at real horses and elephants, isn't it? And the perception of that sees illusory horses and elephants as real cannot challenge the perceptions of actual horses and elephants, isn't it? Does that make sense? Because that perceptions are distorted, and these are not perceptions. So your argument that you're making it from a distorted perception point of view is not to be effective, right? To counter against Madhyamikan's standpoint there. No.
Oh, this is that didn't do so. You were tell it lost that new in the middle go get to the any day. Carsa, Premier Luson, the lot do about them. In leg, you do leg, you was the lot do as or she took in the long to get it on a church over us.
No, so.
Cause the yellow in the cocktail, never your maris.
No, so.
This is what I got here.
So Prasangikas are telling them if you use the distorted perceptions as evidence to refute the correct perceptions, then we will have nothing left to talk about practice in terms of abandonment and cultivation, isn't it? Right? So as Geshe explained, like those who believe that there is no life before and after, right? And if that is used against, right, again, the perception that there's a life before and after, then, the whole thing will fall apart. Just like, those who see that which is unclean as clean, that perception is used to refute the correct perception of that which is impure is impure. So if we keep on doing that, then we are completely destroying the whole presentations of realities, and then we will be left with nothing in terms of cultivating, adopting, and in terms of getting rid of, abandoning. So the distorted perceptions cannot refute the correct perceptions, Let's say if both are equally right, then nothing can refute nothing else, isn't it? Let's say the perception of intrinsic reality is correct, perception of intrinsic reality is correct. If both are equally correct, then they cannot, refute each other, because both are true in a sense, isn't it? But on the other hand, Prasangikas are telling them that the perception of a non-intrinsic existence can refute the perception of intrinsic existence, because when you look at the modes of the perceptions, these modes of the perceptions are exclusive, and they are direct antithesis, isn't it? Are you with me? The perception of intrinsic reality cannot refute and contradict the perception of non-intrinsic reality, whereas it's the other way around. The perception of non-intrinsic reality can directly cut through this other perception, because sees that other perception is distorted perception. Does that make sense? Yeah.
What is it? This is Mutubo Gomba said,
No.
Killing or
No.
Doja, Shebo, you get to Doja, you Mutubo said, Gombo,
No.
the Solo Luna, Solo Luta, Shebo, you said, Shaba Shebo, she joined the Ludico, and chat the child that they could be this song. Or duty or Mutubo go to new go in the Doja double song or said that you do the corners killing or what Doja and Mutubo go Nibos.
No.
She teaches the corners Lola said in the Mutubo go Doja do Gribesi. Or to God Nangetang do I said that you do the in the Mutubo Lodi, Doja Nibo do or what?
No.
Or said that tell Colonel Kellam tell them. Panyabo Mojoje, Mutubo, Dozaki, Mutubo,
one example could be in the Vibhasikas, Southern Tikas, they do assert, that in order to overcome attachment, they can meditate on repulsiveness nature, isn't it? So if somebody is obsessively attached to his or her body, because I'm the one, right? So in order to overcome that attachment, then you have to reflect on the unclean nature of the body, because this body is constituted by as many as 36 impurities, impure substances. Are you with me? So when you reflect on that reflection they already accept is going to help you overcome attachment, isn't it? So the way you are arguing with us is it's not that repulsiveness perception is counteracting attachment. You are saying that attachment is going to refute the other way around, and that doesn't make sense, right? You wouldn't say that, right? So we are just using the example they already accept, isn't it? So this body of ours is constituted by many impure substances, and if we're too much attached to our body, not to disrespect our body or cherish our body less, in my footnote, okay, for New Year's, right? Actually, this body is a septic tank, right? Like it or not. You don't want to think about that. So then think about that. Can you get attached to the septic tank? Okay, that's the issue, right? Anyway, that's footnote. Geshe didn't say that, okay? Yeah.
Oh, this is Nippon Junje Kokangwa Shiten, Keda Ranshi Shuamina, Sanji Sheba so Sonu Juma Lung Sheba than Gelo, Sonum Ged Sonum so Ranshi Motoba Chirchets, then the Yuna Ranshi Yogoda, Ranshi many make good so Yambes, Zubates, Tazig Masimbe, Shongan Deba was. 我这里在现在可能是最后可是有些人有时我这里现在在这个家庭呢，我就最后是吧？
No.
这是按照商业里呀，去吧不要做错事呀，这里这是刚刚同没把他是，如果人性没有是我这里那个的吧？我这那个在现在可能是那大人有的人有个的，这来的呢，你不给最把它用过是吧？没这个我们那时候最后开嘛是吧？
So now we are looking at stanza 9 there. So one of the arguments earlier they said, if things don't exist intrinsically, then there would not be accumulation of merit, right, and the purification, negativity, so forth. And so they're saying that if things don't exist intrinsically, then they think that we cannot accumulate merit from making offerings to the Buddha, right, worship, and how is that possible, isn't it? That only makes sense for them if things are truly existent. Buddha is a truly intrinsically existent. Offerings we make to the Buddha are intrinsically existent. So for them, that makes sense. So now it is like the Prasangika is pulling the rug underneath their feet and they have nothing to stand. They're like, what do you mean? Then you mean, how can we have merit by worshipping Buddha? Because nothing exists intrinsically, right? Yeah.
Oh, the Lena Topeta was on this church, the Ember Meba, Junje, Jumata Shebe, the Ember Meba, Junje Sonu Jumani, Tit Pet Chitana, Che Yard, the Bego, you were such a son, the Joe, Deva, Tishi, Chita, Joe. Tonla derum me derum, Nuba the Tibe Sonu Jungla, Kuja Umabala, di Cho Sheva was di Jansonum, so Ramoni Mother Jans, Minjata Yeva, di Yokochebe, Neg, the land Tabainos, or there that in the Del Tadi Land Tidaka. Ranshi maybe says, Ranshi, Ranshi, Martaba, Ranshi, Martaba show up in the Tison Tories. Churanga Ranshi, Tribesanji, Ranshi, Tribe show up in the Son of Zidu, or the Jikmaris. Said I, Ranshi was in the Shiva with the Son of Yori. In Churanga, Ranshi, Tribe, Shiva with the Son of Zia, the Jikmari, and then Ranshi, Martaba, Sanji, Shiva with the Teleson, Ranshi, Martaba Tories, Langer, or Dixie Lagging his work.
No. So as realists, argue with the Prasangika Madhyamikans, if you say that nothing exists intrinsically, then how could we accumulate merit from worshipping and making offerings to the Buddha? Right? That would not be feasible, And the Prasangikas are telling them, just as you assert accumulating merit by worshipping intrinsically what you believe is intrinsically existent Buddha, in the same way, we say that by making offering to non-intrinsically existent Buddha, right, and making non-intrinsically existent offerings, we also accumulate non-existing, inherently existing merit. It's the same, just like you were telling us story, right? How there is intrinsic Buddha and intrinsic accumulation merit. We are telling you there is no intrinsic Buddha, and then there is no intrinsic accumulation of merit. Same, Yeah.
Oh, that's somebody, not somebody get there. so Kangba Chok dance, de la Kangba Taboni in Chonga Zuzi Dandy. Kid the Simje Yang Ramon in Madrojing. Lot of Nazum they made Jumat Jana. Jumetana Hiba, La Mijawata. Simje Jashina Naya. Naya Shidar Jojo de Jemirixo Shena. Kangba Papa Nige, Diland and Leon Jibe Simje, Leon Jibe Simje Nani, Shizi de Yansi, Shime, Jumaraba so, Numuda Dushi so, Legi, Jena, Sobachewa to the Simjena, Siva Nizajari, Jawa Liber Mase, Jumaki, Jibe, Jumayang. Shizi de Nazi so, yes, Jena. Soba shuna tizi juan jula. Nikala yang jen soba shewa na minjungu. Kusha juma per shewa yang. Juma da simje ni dembar chuba. Chomo jawa demba yinje. Juma da simje shoa tamje na jawa ke malan la. Tetan la ni chong tin juna. Che ji jang juma da melun so zumba ke lang bese. Tanang Jushi, Liushing the Tanang the non-runa, Cheda Pombu, Chishir Minar, non Merunte, Zumba in but Cheva maybe Shiro, she Junayang, Rigba Songsos, or Devrada, so that Juma Nashina, and the Juma by Hicks and the Nera Jokoba, Get Shema Samja Yomaris. And the Simse for Shin, young Johnny, Belending, Simse, the new lesson, Johnny, then the son jet, the Rebus and the shadow, Jumana was in the child was it. Jumata Cordian, because it's all the Zibba called Jumeta, no, Chadi is. The one is similar to the Koya, Lesa, then Koya is Koya Tiagi, Lamgun, Koya Trudos. Hotel Ken, just generally, but you make generally Maris. But you'll get the rally na Gagachiba Maris. What is it?
So Geshe-la's explanation pertains still to the stanza 9, but the last two lines of the stanza. Yeah? And as the realists here, Prasangikas tell them that all phenomena are like an illusion. They appear to us in one way, they exist in another way, so therefore we say that they are empty of intrinsic existence. Okay? But the realists are saying that, they're taking it to that Prasangikas are saying that phenomena and illusion are one and the same thing. That's how they take it, right? And so they said that, look, illusions, they arise and then disappear. They don't go into next life, they said. Now, are you saying that sentient beings are like that? They die and then there's no rebirth? Because you said this illusion, right? And Prasangikas Madhyamikas are clarifying. We are not saying that they are all same in all respects. There are certain things that are very similar, and we are pointing out that. We are not saying that, phenomena and illusion are same in all respects, So what we are saying is that if we look at illusions, when causes and conditions come together, under those circumstances, illusions arise. When causes and conditions disappear, illusions disappear too, isn't it? Just like that, when causes and conditions assemble together, right, for example, with afflictive emotions and contaminated karmic action, then sentient beings, they are reborn and caught up in samsara, isn't it? When other causes and conditions they create, then sentient beings are liberated from samsara, right? So everything is contingent upon causes and conditions, isn't it? That's what we're saying. Just like you would accept that illusion could be only created by its causes and conditions, isn't it? If those causes and conditions are not there, illusions cannot happen, right? So we're saying the same thing. Sentient beings happen because the causes and conditions have been created, right? Karmas and delusions. But if the sentient beings eradicate the contaminated karma's delusion, they're creating other causes and conditions, then they will be liberated. That's what we're saying. We are not saying that they're all same in all respects, No.
Juma the Simjin, Demba Tomo to draw, Demba Motoba, Demba Tomo to draw, Dema Yinji. Juma the Simjin short Tanzania, draw, K Malala. Tetan Laya John the Juna, Cheki Juma the Milumso, Zubake Langbase, Talange, Juki Dushi, the Tana de Naruna, Keda Pumbuchi. No, the Zumba but Cheva maybe here Jurama, Ripa Songso. Get the Simja told me during la Juma Renga Lobo in Joa Yutuena Simja the Jumani. They made the song by Minjuish Juma per Mirum again. Gangba Chimani, Dilin, then the Yuring Zangi, Shida Simji Doyuba, Yin the Heads, but there that you must pet there. You must at the time you should Simji there Simji Mars, Direpja Maris. You met some the Zumbaris, Rashi Yomercy, then Simji Rashi Yomercy, Tibetan Jagor, my said, and the Juma the tiny the Mevanagi. Simje Tanya the Yomers, Direpedo Jagmar is one.
No, sir. So, Prasangikas are telling the realists, we are using examples that you already accept as something false, isn't it? Illusion, magical creation, and the dreams, you regard them as false because, right, they appear to be real, but they are unreal, isn't it? So we're using it to tell you in the same way that things appear to us as intrinsically existent, but they don't exist in that way, right? Just like the illusions. Illusory horses and elephants appear as real horses and elephants, but they are not real horses and elephants. That you already accept it, isn't it? So you already say that there is that, right, disparity. So we are pointing out the same disparity here, that things appear to us as intrinsically existent, but they are not intrinsically existent. Okay? But we are not using the examples and the sentient beings in all respects are similar, as we said before. For example, illusory horses, elephants don't exist at all, isn't it? Now, we are not saying that sentient beings don't exist at all. That's not the point, you know. So don't compare everything there, right? We're only saying that illusory horses and elephants appear as real horses and elephants, but you also accept they are not real horses and elephants, right? In the same way, we are saying things appear to us as intrinsically existent, but they really don't exist in that way. But still things exist, right? So that, distinction is important to be made. Yes.
Chedo Punguchi, Chermena, Namerun, Zumba Imba, Chavavi, Cherchi Junia, Ripa Songsos, Kete Simja Tome, Yuba, Jurenla, Juma Renga Lobo, Juma, Junton, and Simja the Jumani, they made the Somba, Muju, Juma Per Mirum, Jena. Kangba Yingi, Niti, Dandy, Yurimba Sangi, Sidan, Simja Debayeva, Uba Yide, Meados, Takaji. You get some of the Shungor, still Harrison, the ocean down the Nangor Matos, and the Cheta Papa to the town of Nango Marva. Cheta said that he got down the Nan, the Meva, the town now, your edition. Meva Gangata Nango Maris. China go the Cheta Baba, the Pazu, the Medagata Nangos, Meta announced, Cheta announced, Kesha, the Ushita announced, Kesha, so the Jujus was some Jungo, Karsa, Jose Mazono Yungo Maris, or this is what I can say.
So we are now looking at stanza 10, the top part. Even looking at the illusory creations, when the causes and conditions are created or assembled, then illusions happen. But if those causes and conditions are not there, illusions also couldn't be there. So in the same way, when the causes and conditions are there, sentient beings come into existence, right? When causes and conditions are there, sentient beings are reborn in samsara, they get out of samsara, all of those things happen. So that's what we're saying, comparable there. But we are not saying that that anything can be anything at all, right? Even the magician who used pebbles and tricks and the mantras, incantation, do the magic trick, they create horses and elephants, isn't it? Out of nothing. So something that doesn't exist could appear as real, isn't it? There are no real horses and elephants. It's just magical creation, but they still appear to us as real. You know what I mean? But don't ask me that now why like humans and the dogs and cats cannot appear as horses and elephants, right? That's not the point. You mean we are not saying that everything can appear as anything, right? We said under a given condition, when the right cause and conditions assemble together, then things happen, like that magical creation, So we will stop there today. Let me get this page number here, 10 stanza, and then we welcome your questions. Do we have anything online or not at all?
Nothing online at the moment.
So then we can start off here, right? Yeah.
Geshe-la, please could you tell me what is meant by yogi and yogic insight? I think in stanza 7 or 8.
Sure. Ninjo pada ninjo ngusum se rawage. Dichik session arona sa ninjo ba se de sul lago rawage. Ninjo tokpa sene de ngusum se rawage. Di khande jel ko resage.
Ale ninjo pa se na khanra kona lago res lam gumge je namle shige ninjo pa se go res.
So.
Ninjo se de ta ko nyomsnya ga khiba je ta lam da lam ai ma bo ta khanji geve sha jo ya lam du ya khiba kombe je ya jo je ta ninjo si go res.
Nice. Taine kap de la ke yang an ninjo si ja da ro ba ge. Di yang ko ka cha de yang ninjo da jigden be yawa chi do ba ge. Yang di ninjo ba de yang ko ju sha ba yo mar ba ge.
Ka ninjo ka
Tagi di ken chitang da sum ba ro ge. Ninjo pa sa da khang sa nyam len ba de sa ro. Ninjo sa da nyam sa len ju lam de ro ge. Ta da de kap de ya jigden ba da ninjo ba ge yang ke shi do ge. Kap di ninjo ba de uma ba tin ju bal chu ko ro ge.
Da de cho je ko de go ninjo pa sa de ya de da ma so de sha. Ninjo ka sa
jigden ba
sa de nam sha ka mi ka sa rang ga ya de.
Just to make sure that you don't get confused, I think you're asking probably the question based on what you heard here in this translation, but there's a general meaning of the things you asked. So the Sanskrit word is a yogi, Tibetan translated as Nenjurpa. That refers to a person, a meditator, a practitioner, whatever you want to say in generic, isn't it? The Nenjur, the yoga, is the practice or the path that he or she is cultivating, right? That's one way to understand it, right? In general. Then I was just trying to push Geshe-la, that's the general one, but we also use the word Nenjur here, right? Is a particular meaning in this context, Probably you are thinking about that then in general. But Geshe-la said, it can be used in many ways, but let's say if we are going to differentiate between Jigtenpa, the ordinary mundane, and the yogis, so sometimes the yogis could be referred to all the followers of the tenets, isn't it? All the followers of the Vaibhasika, Sautantika, all the tenets can be called yogis in some sense. And then everybody else who don't follow tenets can be considered as ordinary or mundane. So we can use it in different contexts to mean different things, right? Yogi and yoga, yeah.
I had a question. It said that we want to avoid being in a stupor or a trance-like state while meditating. How would you describe a trance-like state, and how is it different than resting in non-dual awareness?
Trance-like state, what do you mean? Like completely absorbed?
I was reading something last night that was saying, like, when you meditate, you don't want to be you want to avoid being dull or in a stupor. You don't want to be in a trance kind of thing.
Okay. And what was the other one you said? So we don't.
So how do you know if you're in a trance-like state or if you're in actual non-dual awareness?
Okay. Yeah. Quran condition di tiring sungjo ko da mara Quran tep di lo de sarwa ge. that they the engine law there is a kala that be com jab du kala wage this sequence ngazo com jab ina tene com jagi samje ke samje change me abada ni khu de gan sawada sem yob de chag wage yamen be shibuji ya ting le ji se wage 제가 곰디 딱다 곰 저기 유명하다 어디 컨디션 야와 쳐고래서 로하게 곰 저기 유 삼제 데니 셈고 간주 체인지 되면 여러 하게 맞아 있는 데로 하게 라페베서 라슈고서 여러 하게 어디 테스트 세션 나오면 되게
어때 다디 희신에서 전 희신에서 도 곰요디 전 희신에서 도 중국으로 되라
노서
그 딱다 내는데 제바디 딱다 송음님들 다코 제바 뭐도 좀 쇼선 데 그게 중동 그때 딱지신이 되는 희신스거로
나오
그래서 그거 좀 쇼서는 농사 좀 쇼서서 라고 이제디 희신해야 되라고로
노서
다들 라서는 제바 양조주 송니 양조주 비가 대장샤샤 좀저 상야도 이제 공교디도 이게 야 중국에서도 전 희신해야 되고 그랬어
노서 So Geshe says, how can we deal with translator said? Are we really doing meditation? This is where we talk about the importance and the role of mindfulness and introspection, isn't it? So introspection is the spy, right? Spying on our mind. Is it really meditating? Has it been distracted? Is it in a trance-like state, so to speak, isn't it? So once it figured it out, it has a report. Hey, your mind is not here, it's in a trance state, right? And then the mindfulness has to bring the mind to whatever meditation you're doing, get back to the task or the focus, isn't it? So that's why, using the mindfulness introspection is the way to, right, deal with such issue. Yeah. Yes.
I don't have a lot of clarity, so this is why we're.
Okay. But you're not going to confuse me, right? I'm just kidding. Yeah.
As Geshe was teaching, I started to think about positive phenomena and negative phenomena.
Yes.
The mind that would see emptiness would be a mind that is trained to see a negative phenomena. So this is why it needs to be cultivated, because we don't walk around engaging things that are not here. We don't really think in negatives. But I was thinking in terms of the realists, when they go, oh, there's no intrinsic reality, therefore there's no reality whatsoever, like nothing exists. Are they putting I was thinking of it in two ways. One, I was thinking, okay, they're putting the negative on the existence versus on the intrinsicness. There's like non-intrinsic existence versus intrinsic non-existence. So the negative is in the other side. Can I get clarity first about that from Geshe? And then I'll ask my second part.
Okay, let me think in English. I don't know whether that is Tibetan word for that, right?
Because
so
like
you say non-intrinsic is the negative is on the
negative
first,
is
but
on,
can you say intrinsic?
Well, I think there.
Say the other one. I got the non-intrinsic one. What's that?
Yeah, I actually made a graph of it for myself, because I'm like, oh my gosh, you could put the negative on so many parts of this thing. Right. The negative can go here, the negative can go there.
Oh, yes, so give me the second option. The negative go this, the second one.
So when they say,
yes.
We say non-intrinsic existence.
Right.
But they say, oh, that means nothing, non-existence.
Right.
So they're putting the negative on the existence, and we're putting the negative on the intrinsicness. Is that what's going on? Let me just make sure I got that.
Okay. Now I got it. Yeah. Let me check with the Geshe, okay? Morangi condition the disagree again. That and Umat Ngwe Mabler Wagen. Shotam Ransing do Yomars Laberwagen. Consul that Ransing Madu say taking Gagwecher Wagen. Gakwa songs that Consul Koya Ransing men touched the Messamager Wagen. So did some name and Rosa Pena Oma tangible legal Ransing the Yomare de Mabamar your school Wagen. Consul Sumter Nalia Ransing Yomars Ledicalia Mabamashir Wagen. Ransing Mabata Mabani the Giva Chetu Marwagi. Chetekala Namjing on the Che, some time and as a Namju Dubeche, the Lola Chama, the Gagweche, the Namjing on the Kumshi Marwagi. Says that any the Tony the Gagwasonza, and Eco in Jimmy Samutan, Sem Chondash and Kekwa in the inside at the rest again.
Gagdo Cheva Museum. Chitokora, Lord Chat, Sugar, the Kobeshi, Sugar, and the corner of Ramu Chua, samud shukshya yora.
No.
Oh, this
Dai
is
na-
nang tosi wara.
Dai na rang madubas la video kala odi gabo chal.
Moto se ta rahi mar ta te ko suzu khumshi rahi chwa de yue de ta rahi moto se de ini ko suzu puge nang zo de mindu se du sa de do de wa khon khoya te ko war me rahi me sa khwa mara bsi
No.
me rahi me de me yo mar se so ko du
Na re. 알 추정 어디긴 랑신 매번 매버기다 야와 체신 거 파전 체도 말 되죠. Right. What Geshe is saying is that, just like us, the realists, things appear to us as intrinsically existent, And so as realists, we believe that's how things exist. So when somebody tells us that's not how it exists, right? And so then we think, oh, now you're saying that nothing exists at all. That's how I experience it, isn't it? Now you're telling me everything I experience is not there, right? So the Prasangikas are able to differentiate, as we know, between non-intrinsic existence and non-existence, right? Whereas realists, they are not able to do that. For them, right, non-intrinsic existence is the same as non-existence, isn't it? Doesn't matter wherever you put the negative, right? For them, it is right. Because for them, right, if things exist, it has to be intrinsic. If things don't exist, then means it's not, right? So that's how they couldn't differentiate that. That's the issue. Right? Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So I just had a question about, like, basically in the Lamrim, it talks, there's, I think during the part where it talks about the medium scope or medium capacity person, it talks about suffering and the nature of pleasure and how pleasure really exists in relation to pain. And so I was wondering if he can speak about that. I guess pleasure also is not intrinsically existent, and some people would define something as pleasurable, whereas another person would define it as not pleasurable. In fact, and the same person can say that something is pleasurable and then later at a different time say it's not pleasurable anymore. So can he speak a little bit about the nature of pleasure and like how it maybe kind of exists? It's kind of relative to the person, I guess, or their view.
Okay, so the nature of the pleasure and
I guess like how it's relative to the view of that person, like it intrinsically exist. It's like something isn't intrinsically pleasurable, but it's
intrinsicness relating to the pain, right? Pleasure,
Yeah,
let's say. Okay,
yeah.
sure, Quran condition edit this again. That's it. On the soil, chashavina, that's so dewa da dunga yorwage. Dewa dunga saying the chidu galako, there's a deja chadorwage. Chidu gala, Korasamutan duka. 강사 지금 외에는 니다 대화의 기부도 삼던에 강사 샤바지기 디 동해 통되게 들어가게. 다 소소 랑자 이메이랑 이해라 즉 대화를 삼던데 야고슈를 동해 차든 그러게. 제가 괜단다 랑싱 만두 세셔러가게. 디 소와 대화를 자너가게. 소와 대화대야 랑싱이 만두를 다 요르슬라고게. 니 퀄리티스 게마 세션 안 프로베사게. 디 데시션 또 그래서 소와 랑싱 만두 소와 대화서 그러게. 랑싱 만두 베콜 그러게. 어디 데스 페디게 소와 대화샤 다 랑싱 만두 베디 데스 세션 하게.
소와 대화대 가르칠 수 있어.
소와 대화대 때 랑싱 두다 모두 셰 이내로하게. 어디 남샤 간데 쳐고래서 그러다.
알레. 그 지단 소와 대화서 요러야.
나오.
요러 디 요머서 이 요머서.
나오.
다디 소这个什么都是 요더라 히와 소와대와랑 히요 삼대와라.
나래.
이거 나 태교선 소와대와 요더랑 히요 뭐지 어디 개발지도 와.
다 랑싱 매단데 소와데.
이메라 가서 되게 좋다 사람 제가 그 딱동전 다 데려가서 누구도 메나 데라 힘이라 와서.
So Geshe, what he says is that we accept that pleasurable feelings do exist. There's no disagreement on that, right? Now, realists would say they exist intrinsically, right? Otherwise, they couldn't exist at all. You mean? Whereas Prasangiya Madhyamikas say they don't exist intrinsically, but they exist. Are you with me? And so how can we say that they don't exist intrinsically, but they do exist? Right? So when we put it under the test analysis, we said, if pleasurable feelings exist intrinsically just the way we experience and think they are, then if we analyze it, it should be findable if that's the truth of the matter at the end of the day, right? At the end of the analysis. This is right. The fact that it's not findable under analysis tells us the other side, isn't it? That they are not intrinsically existent. So that's how we deal with it. Does that help a little bit? Or are you thinking about in some other way?
No, it does help, and I think too, when I was reflecting on it, like, I noticed that the more tired I am, or the more stressed I am, or more distracted, the more the pleasure seems intrinsically existent, permanent, like, and therefore like more attractive.
Right.
Whereas when I'm more calm, or I'm do some breathing practice or something, the pleasure that I was so attracted to, it actually kind of, the attraction kind of dissolves, and I can see it more clearly. So I think it speaks to what.
So
he was
why
saying.
so when you are really clear-minded, you said the attraction diffuse. Do you know how it's getting diffused? You see it more like dependent nature, or it just happens by osmosis?
I think it's kind of, I think, seeing it more clearly, and kind of seeing how it's in relation to the amount of pain or whatever that I was feeling. So the reduction of the pain is kind of,
Sure. Ala Quran ki dirai di Quran nyamnyo chebe na rawage. Ta Quran ji lo sewo me ba ba je ta thang che ba da din de chung ba ina pike yu yi do mo che na rawage. Yu de mo di rangwe de du ba chi pe le la bu chung du sa ta ga du san rawage. Quran sem nyob to ta thang che ba da din de chung na rawage. Yu yi de mo ba chi na ta yu de mo ba de rangwe de du ba di nam sa pike yi che da di le du sa rawage. 다 same time 맞아버제 삼로 충분이나 대 당도 이도 왕와데 당고 통고데 이내 이도 왕와 세근데 랑은데 두바 멤버와게 이도 왕 마세디 이도 왕부절 때네 치중절 때 이용다 왕으로와게 어딘데 연구도서 디 딱다 그런 삼로 당다 천한데 데데요나서 그러게
이도 왔거든.
겐타 그런 탕체로와게 탕체 삼nhập 제시도 갈 이도 왕와버스 남산데 차과지는데 그 랑은데 두바 샤용도 살와게 다 탕 맞아버제 로아베 셈 충분히 되나 이해도 못 때로와게 이해도 뭔가 디세디 고랑을 좀 남산 지금에 들어와게 이해도 뭔가 세엔디 고때서 되자로와게 딜레 이해도 뭔가 때나 고 이해도 마음을 때서와게 잠바데 어딘데 이제 때서 되죠 그 샤고 디자다 셈 녀도 당 마당 내게 해봐요나서 그서와게
심 요다다 당에게 로 차들이 해봐요다. 그래서 심 요도 지나는데 로드 샤야데 시주로 저시 누자리로 와라. 심고 중국에서 따다 내나 상로 갈 거다 상로 거서야 저 저거
이렇게 해봐죠 이러다. What Geshe is thinking is with respect to what you just shared, isn't it? Of course, if our mind is sluggish and we are exhausted, like okay, don't let me say the next part. Then it's very likely that things will appear to us distorted, and we are more likely to believe in how it is, right? Intrinsicness, let's call it. But if our mind is fresh and we are not tired, right? And then we have more space and we are likely to be able to think it, right? That this thing is not just, we take the face value, right? Just like we said, this something that attracts you, you see it more independent, right? Compared to something more attractive, maybe this is less attractive. Compared to the less attractive, this seems right. Then you see the relativity nature of things, right? Because we are capable of thinking that. Our mind is clarity, right? Not clocked in. Yes.
My question is about the story that Geshe told about the man who killed his father so he could become king.
Yes.
So it seems like that there's I'm confused as to how he was able to be liberated and become become fully enlightened when he had just killed his father. And so in conventional reality, then that seems like that would be a tremendous amount of negative karma he had just generated. And how is it possible that the Buddha's words, when properly understood by the man, was able to liberate him? Is it because either maybe his killing his father was a fulfillment of some karma from a past life where his father had killed him? Or is it maybe because this man who killed his father had accumulated so much positive merit in past lifetimes or in this lifetime that then that was able to counterbalance that and he was still able to be with that
Sure.
realization?
Sure.
Or is it because that when you come to a full understanding of emptiness, that there is some process that just wipes away all the karma anyway?
Sure. Thank you. You have been very clear. Yes.
Okay,
I'm
thank
not
you.
confused. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Quran condition di ta tagi kyabu maja ta gi yap se barwa gen. Yap se di ta ngone thane gi ta dikwachim barwa gen. Chedan yine ta gen soya la sanje gi phad man seja wo do se ne Quran pha di ko tonda kongba se ne ta dikpa ta ma se tene kaso da phalam ta la ro gen. Te kande cha bare se da cha dan de sho ro gen. Ngone chana dikpa nyime chim bu sa ba ta ko ta dan she ro gen. Quran ga samle chik ta ma ina 직 제면은 코란기 겨와 망관 사백이 다 선함디 숙잡 체다신 로하게 니게 다과 다네 코 아니 공다 파랑탑을 왜스로하게 소진의 제면은 다디 갈라고 렘벨로 겨왕에 말 코라밥에 코라 세브제로하게 다디는 파세셔자 코니 레니다 지보다로하게 당디 또 서버로 왜서 수마디 다 동니 또자 동니 생의 또면은 코에게 가서 다베 디바가 랑싱 다로에스로하게 어디 뒷바 다다한테 간데 스타버에서 로 원에 저는 아주 지나 미세는 바바세는 ben 여버심 모르게 내가 sab진 사회로 와 근데 레라고 뒷바 간데 다도 그래서다
마디야 또요 또 사이 디바 강한테 탁 말아봤지 디바 타 주데 다데 가르사 넘버 수지부 톱던 에니 가르사
no
님부 군저 또세 또 이상 그러
no 또 싫어
또 디바 타고 대가세요 제 나랑 뭐잖냐 차 세워 땅이 디바 타고 예바 자요 말이지
no so 다 알레디 다 간지 예부 마제다기 디 공부시 톱시 상대요 그래서
또 이상 거 제가 배 샘디 코뉴 뭐 휴차 다고 더 무슨 더 휴체
no
산지에 예버시고 좀 랩시데 산지에 그게 고마 터너도 뭐나 예버 나와서 제가 이거 다기 샘배 무슨 더 휴 코뉴 뭐 샤라
no
그래서 샘코 딱딱 코뉴 뭐 딱딱 샘도 뇌사를 딱딱 뒤에는
no
인삼도 걸다가 야가요
no so
샘도 더 보고 봐도 쪼이네
no
인삼도 쪼르고
no
어디리
알레디 코란 디스 공부시는 님부터 없이 참아 토네 다 원에 전에 디바 다야디 게 돈이 다 또버디 차도로
선지를 대바제바다 선지 신길
다 참아 대바다 코란 선다 먹으러 와게 그러니까
가가 허러 버름 좀
just to make sure I get the whole picture to translate. So, in the case of this is famous Buddhist story, right? King Ajatasattu, who killed his father Bimbisara, that was a terrible negative karma, no doubt about it. And so Buddha, he went to see Buddha. Buddha did not kind of right away admonish him and said anything because that wouldn't have helped. He himself was really in a very kind of a desperate situation. So Buddha stunned him, said, father and mother to be killed. And he felt a little bad. Buddha greeted him, right? So when he went back and contemplated the whole thing, so in the part of as a purification, how he become, right? It's not just one or two things, right? To be able to purify that negativity of killing his father, in his practice involve what we normally call the four powerful antidotes, Nyenpo Topshi in Tibetan, right? The power of regret, right, for terrible things, right, acknowledgement, and then the power of applying the antidote, which is thinking about emptiness and all of that, right, and the power of resolution. I'm never going to do this again, right? Then you thought, huh? Then you thought. As I translate straight, Geshe didn't say the whole thing. Well, that's coming out of my mind just because he's looking at me. What's this four power endurance? So I'm just supplying my footnote here, right? Then, oh, that's right. Then the faith in the Buddha, right? Faith in the Buddha's word, regret for his own terrible negative karma, yeah, and applying the in this case like thinking about emptiness. That's the antidote. And then the resolution, I'm never going to do this again, right? Those we call the four powerful antidotes, yeah? So as he think about those things, it's a combination of many things, right? Faith in the Buddha, maybe the lot of merit he also accumulated in past lives, right? We don't know, right? And then really realizing the emptiness, right? And all of them combined purified his karma and he became an Arya, right? So the clarification Geshe offered is that to be able to purify negativity is not just enough to create a good karma, right? It's not like, okay, I'll make offering to Buddha, so that's good karma, right? That alone is not going to purify negativity. I mean, we can do prostration, right? We can salute Buddha. Now, okay, now that's good karma. I make a flower offering. That's not enough. It has to have that 4 powerful antidotes combined, right, to be able to purify any negativities. So as a part of that, we didn't have the whole story, right? So his whole the practice involved all of those things, and so combined power, so he was able to purify that karma and others too, right? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Touch and answer. Do we have one more? Someone? Yes. Yeah.
Presence, deep gratitude. I'm curious about the flowers in front of you. In a conventional reality, these flowers are solid. But in a sense of absolute reality, they are the products of causes and conditions of the sun, the wind, the water, the nutrients. I'm curious about Geshe-la's direct experience of when he was a child and he looked at flowers. What was that experience like? And today, after his decades of practice, when he looks at a flower, what does he see?
Sure. Thank you. And that was clear to me too. So, if your translator is not clear, then you confuse him, then everything gets confused. Quran condition is a Thoma King Tring the Quran the Chabra Sunja Wagen. Can Tronto Kabuship Jess or the Kabuship Chunsa Wagen. Quran condition the day is that under the method or Wagen. That method the Karsore Chidang as a meet Imana, the method the Taco which is the Quadij Yor Todos Wagen. In a Tayan that Nilugun Tabayimana, that the Judah came Mangushi San, Quakeber was a Wagen. Quasabian than you may say the Karina Wagen. In their songs, the Koran gang, Kirgi Tungyam, Geshe Gyeltsen. Gang Emma Golo Chundu Kanlayap and the Metal Sig Wage. Did he metal sit down the Chon Yamno the conditions Wage? That game and the Dish of Roman number Wage. Yamlen Nayorwa says a metal sig in Dugalia sit down Mandaris to Tucson Yamyon carrying those, so this is Sonasa. Yama Chunjun Galler, that game, when this work, Page among was saying Yamlen Mabonanza, Diam, metal Tadan, the Mandaris, you just again.
Not that I did sing it down, but the Yamle did near Kakasho, Mosha, that the Yama Toya, that Tadatoya did it. Kever, you were Gunzes came to
no, in a daddy, Neju, the Sundugal Gibet series that I could test young Kingo again, Nelu.
You think what that is the Yama Tony, the Tadaton is Munda, you can no Mendus.
No, sir. Geshe said, yes, I have studied for many years. But in terms of my own experience, he said, I don't see any difference in me. The way I saw flower before and the way I see flower is the same to me. Yeah. Well, that made my life easy, right? That was not a complicated answer to be given there, right? Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Made my life easy. Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, we have to be quick. It's just a clarification about the first question Renee had about the yogi and yoga. What's the meaning of yogi and yoga?
Yeah. Yogi and yoga.
Yes, and so Geshe said it has different meaning in different contexts.
Right.
But in this particular context, it refers to somebody who has direct realization of emptiness. In verse 3, for example, it's contrasted with there's a contrast between the contemplative and the ordinary person. So that means that the contemplative, or yogi, in this case, is somebody who has a direct realization of emptiness, or at least the union of calm abiding, especially inside, meditating on emptiness.
Okay. That's right. Quran condition this that the can Nenjo Pada Nenjo Keba Tuashurwa. Again, Sumberwag and Nenjo Bas and the Kansan Yamlen, Chagan, Nenjo Lana Yamlenda called Lam the rest again. That they remember Coashambale Larwage. The Captain Dinalia Nenjo Batungu Wage, making sure that Tonda Karis and the Galakan, the Jupta Zingel and Nenjo Bas Labrawage, to the Megam Sumaiba. Quran of Dugalia, the Tanda, the Sholoka Sumba de Terwage. Tela Jigden Namni Ton, Nenjo Bada Pebawo, Tela Jigden Pebani, Nenjo Jigden Ki Nula Sherwagen, Di kap nenjo ba di ane tongni tongyen chla rawage. Nenjo ba ta shila sungde ko tongni yuen rawage. Di member ba dinde kwa imba di ta ka de so ke.
Re. 다 돈이 도게 그게 따당시다. 돈이 뭐 제가 뭐 거의 진로 주주잖아. 돈이 다 상게 되게 그게 낭주다. 제가 마셔야 되게 낭주시나. 제가 마셔야 더 좀 먹고 나온대요 그랬다. 제가 마셔야 다주를 다다 돈이 도게 되게 프로 사고 좀시나 거의 될 종으로 통통 그랬습니다.
저다 di kap de la ke tongni togen de nenjo ba la ma do ga da jing de ba la shin ko ro. Ta di yan ke tubde che ba jin tubde ya ye che nenjo le tho ma ma di ti ko ro.
그래서 또봐 토메게 되게 통당 요리스.
그래 상만 nenjo ba re de yan tho dang ro.
따마따마게 엄마 좀 통하죠.
La no. Okay. Yes, in that context, I read the stanza back to Geshe, so he knows here, right? He said, yeah, in that context, the understanding is the one who realized emptiness is called yogi, the one who hasn't that is called the worldly or mundane. But that's also said, as we said, among the yogis, there could be different levels of understanding, isn't it? Emptiness is presented at different levels. So the higher schools of thought, yogis, right, they look down, right, then their level of understanding is different from the other yogis down below. So that's also, right, you have to keep it in mind, yeah.
The reason is I'm mentioning that because last week Geshe said that yogi could be somebody who doesn't have a direct realization of emptiness. Now we're hearing that actually they all have. Yeah, right?
Okay.
They all. It's a different level of realization of emptiness, of course.
Okay.
But nevertheless, a yogi has to have that.
Okay.
Whereas previously he had said that the yogi may not, or at least that's what we heard, that may not have that.
Quran this
But actually they do.
Nema Quran ji comment ko didn't not the ko tajan ta der wage. Nenjo ba ina inji minji gi tongni roage. So fe chawa yesa ma res roage. Dire sungar cheso ta tanda gi sonde gal nenjo ba ina tongni to be chawa che roage. Ani dire ve that is sessions na ro nas ko roage.
nenjo 돈이 또 캡스 들리려고 이렇게 제가 nenjo 봐서는 냠래 시게 지금 다 거기.
다 갑디기 nenjo 봐서야지 돈이 동에 집에 잡을래.
nenjo 통수카가 열어서야 돼. 가둘래오나 돈이 동에서다 마도 지 딩셔고.
알로샤 오레스 알로. So what Geshe wants to clarify is that in general, right, if we say nenjo bar or yogis, it doesn't have to be someone who has realized emptiness, okay? But in this context, if we are comparing the ordinary with the one who realized emptiness, then the one who realized emptiness is yogi, right? And then among the schools of thought, then the higher yogis will have different outlook. That's what he's clarifying, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I have a lot of prayer requests, and not with me, but our Geshe, and then I have announcement to make, yeah.
We have a few prayer requests today. The first is for Mac Bia, who just recently passed away. May Mac Bia and all of those who, all of the deceased and who have recently passed away, be free from all types of suffering and negative karma accumulated since their beginningless times. May they be reborn with all precious freedoms and endowments. May they meet the Dharma and a qualified guru and quickly achieve liberation and enlightenment. Prayers for those that are still living include prayer requests for Mr. Huing Tu Hai and Huing Van Can, who are experiencing illness. Please pray for their quick recovery. Also, prayer requests for who is experiencing sickness as well. May Geshe experience a quick recovery. Along with prayers for those just mentioned, Please keep all sentient beings in your prayers and dedications. May they be free from all obstacles, hardship, and negative karma. May their wishes and prayers be fulfilled. May they be guided by the blessings of the three jewels, and may they experience everlasting peace and happiness.
Then again, Kundungi Chimbo, Kong San Chimo, Kongos the wagon. Kundungi Chola, Kong San Chimo, Jalutan to Kongos the one. Tomachim now. Dine 30 Chosum Young, the Kishala Tamba Digi, the Kongzo kick the one, young church for you. So I'm going to add one more prayer announcement that His Holiness Dalai Lama's older brother, His Excellency Gyaludundu, passed away at 96 or 7. And so we would like to, include in our prayers. And my announcement is that on February 13th, Thursday, at 7:30, we will do the chalk offering, Gana Chakra, to commemorate the anniversary of our very Guru, late Venerable Geshe Phuntsok Gyeltsen. Okay, so we'll do that. So with that said, no, sure.
I seem to have missed a couple of names on this list here. I apologize. Two more prayer requests for Bill Baschu Sr. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who's recovering from cancer surgery, and then prayers for Louise Inns, who is recovering from a loss due to the Pacific Palisades fires. So please keep them in your prayers and dedications as well.
So I'm assuming many of you have that one pager with two-sided thing. We will do the Arya Avalokiteshvara salutation, mantra, and dedication first for the deceased, and then we will do the healing Buddha medicine salutation, mantra, and dedication for those who are living and who need prayers. Chadong Golun, Gyove, Gyabodon, Jendong, Gyawa, Sangbe, Sangye, Kangla, Kangdu, Tela, Tedumba, Zumba, Jenre, Chanze, Lo, Ommani, Peme, Hung, Ommani, Peme, Hung, Ommani, Peme, Hung. Omani Beme Huanri, Gawadi, Nyododa, Jeres one, Rojonem, Rovachi, Dia Zalam, Gaba Sho, Toje Kola, Nyombe, Jomdende, Senzan, Tebe, Nindu, Dunga, Dozon is a Sanje, Menjo, Bindu Yaye Vela, Chanze, Lo. Teyata Om Begaze, Ma Begaze, Ranza Samunga de Soha. 대다 옴베간제 메간제 마베간제 베간제 란자 삼몽가 대소 한 겨와 대 녀도다 멘베 겨보 롭주 로와 제자 마르 대야살라 그버라쇼. So booklet we have right there. Page, I suppose, 3. Lord Jazu Vuton Begadi, Gasan Pumbe, Chido, Memba Shen, Tenba Zinla, Wando Jicha, Tanyan Chugun Chola, So Wan De, page 5. Mawan Dame, Gunjan Donga, Den, Gandhi, Jongso, Ninda, Senza, Jamgun Jawa, Niba, Yapse, Zhangson, Tinzi, Mabe, Shiba, Tenzin Chebe, Jingguan Zebe, Xie Nigun Changzhu, Tendu, Longdo Tamzhe, Bebe, Beiyun, Duja Yazu, Gundo, Shabde, Tezang Guangda, Chezu, Zombe, Yongzhou, Yure, Tube, Nyake, Longri, Tejin, Nube, Bedenba, Tubden, Kangri, Guangdang Zongwen, Namda Gun, Dendang Ruwe, Pende Jungwe Shi, Lundru Jumin, Chebe, Tile, Geshan Duje, Dundo, Shabden Shu, Chizu Lame, Tuge, Melamda, Geshan Duje, Dendang Zame, Shoshu Todo, Jidong Dombo, Chida Memben, Dungu Lundru Shu, page 9. Rangja Shingen, Gombo, Zeba, Men, Zodo, Namje, Geyun, Drama, Chozo, Zeye, Lazo, Tamje, Dade, Mishi, Choge, Ngodo, Tubden, Jedang, Losan, Yawa, Ye, Shido, Tenban, Zembe, Beyun, Tade, Duje, Jungwe, Xinye, Cho, Yangde, Ninje, Ongbo, Sowa, Jiden, Sungwe, Chana, Beme, Tembe, Zawa, Soso, Tawa, Namda, Sujin, Yangda, Langba, Ye, Losan, Yenden, Bedo, Shabde, Tuzhon, Gyaltsen, Nonzin, Yangbe, She, Namje, Changzin, Junbe, Gomzhon, Shela, Songzhon, Debe, Denbe, Ngata, Chenbo, Shabde, Chebe, Zhenbe, Dunden, Longza, Zhenbe, Dunden, Leshe, Zhangzha, Zu, Kizu, Xinyin, Chenbo, Shabde, Kebe, Langdo, Guzhe, Zeta, Zunbe, Chara, Niezo, Rangsa, Sangbe, Duje, Rego, Yishe, Sumden, Xinyin, Chenbo, Shabde, Tesang, Zhulang, Zhobe, Dende, Menjo, Taju, Zangme, Seje, Labjin, Zidin, Dende, Bejawa, Tuden, Xinyin, Chenbo, Shabde, Shozong, Yawa, Seje, Qinla, Tuden, Damjin, Songmen, Chile, Daja, Lasan, Dabe, Denbe, Cheda, Memben, Dungu, Lundu, Shu, Zhangzhu, Simzhu, Rinpo, Maye, Bana, Yeyu, Gewa, Nyangba, Meba, Gone, Gongdong, Bewa, Shu, Dongni, Dawa, Rinpo, Maye, Bana, Yeyu, Gewa, Nyangba, Meba, Gone, Gongdong, Bewa, Shu, Sa, Xi, Beijing, Juxi, Mendo, Zhang, Rira, Lingxi, Ninde, Yanba, Sangye, Xindo, Mede, Wewa, Dogun, Nanda, Xingla, Jeba, Shu, Kari, Rabe, Gorwe, Xingang, Su, Pendang, Dewa, Malu, Zhongwe, Jere, Siwang, Tenzin, Shabe, Zidin, Bando, Denju, Ji, Yidang, Guru, Ra, Mandela, Ga, Niyan, Daya, Men, Yawa, Gundo, Yangda, Lama, Dan, Deme, Cheye, Bela, Longju, Sada, Lamje, Yunden, Razo, Nen, Doje, Zhang, Gowa, Nyu, Do, Yu.